All right, and we're live. Welcome to Grafana Campfire, the Grafana community call. This is our second one, so hopefully people watched. At least a few people have watched the first one. I think we've got some viewers on YouTube. This, I think, is the first one. We're also streaming live, so you could technically join a YouTube stream if we figure out a bit more of the logistics. So that's also something to check out next time. But yeah, it's still me, David. I lead the Grafana team. I'm also here with Matt Ryer, senior principal engineer, and Carl, also senior. Oh no, you changed your name to senior principal engineer.
Senior principal engineer, yeah.
Is that because you like tacos?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you watch? Yeah. So we also have Usman from our developer advocacy team, who's going to represent a bit the community, and he's also got some questions for us later. Sweet. But today I thought, like, after last time where we looked a bit at the sort of in-between years where we didn't have the community call and everything happened, this time we also want to look a bit at concretely what happened in 2024, because I think we as the team made a lot of progress, but also the company made a lot of progress, and then look a bit at what we're going to build next year. And so for that, we have Mitch, who is, what are you? You're a director of product, right? And so you're essentially my counterpart. Right?
I didn't know we were all supposed to be adding senior to our titles. I feel like you could have done that too, David, but some of us are humbler than others, I think.
Thing is, we're not allowed to add the titles. So for us, it's important to add the titles.
Yes, of course.
I also don't know how many characters I had left in there in that field.
Yep. But yeah, so I'm the head of the product manager team for Grafana, which means we're somewhere between visionaries and engineering lackeys, something like that. I guess it means also if you made a feature request and it's not in the product yet, it's my fault. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much my job. But yeah, among the other kinds of things that I do are track what we're trying to accomplish in Grafana and how well we did, which I think is why you brought me here. I think it's going to be fun to talk about what we set out to do, the features we shipped, and how well they helped us do that, and what we ended up accomplishing last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're also tracking a lot of KPIs, right? Open source is a big part of our DNA. That's what we also talk about internally a lot, and we track a lot of numbers there too. How are sort of the adoption stats right now, Mitch?
Pretty good. So over the last couple of years, I have been paying less and less attention to the number of instances of Grafana that are out in the wild, which, as you know, that could be an empty dev instance, or it could be, a massive, 20,000 user production instance used by lots and lots of people. I'm paying a lot more attention to monthly active users, basically the active users number. If you go and look at the stats in the admin section of Grafana, we tally those up. It tells us how many users who are currently considered active on a rolling 30-day basis. So last year was huge. We had a 30% active user growth. And the sort of peak that we hit, which we have a ton of seasonality as well, it sort of plummets around the holidays as everybody goes home from work and cares less about their production systems, I guess. But we hit 3.2 million active users, which is a massive community. This is obviously much smaller than the total number of users living in Grafana instances. These are people who signed in and used Grafana in the last 30 days. So that was a huge accomplishment. And in fact, 3.2 million specifically, like to 2 decimal points, was exactly the target we set and exactly what we hit. You might think that it's very sort of a smooth curve, but unlike instances, active users tends to fluctuate a ton. Like it's seasonal, it changes throughout the week. So it was like, I think it was a fun coincidence that we sort of exactly hit our goal. And maybe one other notable thing here is that 30% growth is a huge difference from last year. In 2023, we had 17% year over year active user growth. And in 2024, like I mentioned, it was 30%, which is like a huge shift. And there's something we've been, you're constantly wondering is, where do we sit on that sort of, that classic bell curve? And we were like, oh no, are we sort of hitting the taper point? And what we're seeing is actually an acceleration in our growth rate, which is even bigger than acceleration just in the number of users that we add every year. So I was really sort of, I don't want to say surprised, but I was quite pleasantly surprised to see that the growth rate of Grafana usage is accelerating. It means really good things for the community.
Yeah, 3.2 million. I mean, how many of these people do you know, Mitch, personally?
I know 1,500. About the number of employees in our company, and we add through that growth means we add 1,800 users every day. So this is what I mentioned to the team, is like we're adding more active users every day than the total number of people in our company. It's wild.
Yeah,
wild.
Yeah, I'd say I spend time regularly with about 3.5 people, so more.
Yeah. Well, commiserations to half a person out there. Think about it.
Yeah, but I think when we look kind of in the future, we sometimes also have to look a bit in the past to see like what did we do for this growth to happen, right? Like, is it accidental, or does it have to do with the work that also my team has been doing and that you've been doing, Mitch? Is there anything where you think like this is actually one thing that maybe the people have been waiting for and sort of accelerated the growth a bit?
Yeah, this is a constant sort of calculation. How did our work impact the growth in the community, or our growth as a company, or any of the above? And sometimes you have really direct connections. So for example, we'll connect with a community member. They'll be working to do something significant for a ton of their users. We'll help them with it. And, as a result, you can say, I did this thing and we gained 100 users as a result. But usually it's way more obscured, more abstracted than that. And so I would say probably most of the growth this year is actually based on the compound efforts from last year, the year before. But some of the things that I think are most interesting from an adoption perspective in the last year, the big one is the Explorer apps. So like a huge majority of Grafana users are monitoring Kubernetes using Prometheus, or they're using Loki or Tempo or one of the new databases, like for a classic software infrastructure observability use case. And so the Explorer apps basically open up the ability to explore those databases without knowing how to write PromQL. And like, yeah, this is a tale as old as time. Something we've been struggling with for years is how do we help people who don't want to learn a new query language? It's a really basic problem, but one that we've really struggled to solve. You can see over the years we've tried to do different things. Add a graphical query builder, or add a kickstart your query option, or like sort of trying to create better ways to query. But instead, this year, and this was like a Torkel, a fever dream of a project, and then a team that includes Matt has really built out the Explorer apps. I think that has resulted in a ton of usage, not just of the Explorer apps, but of Grafana in general.
Yeah, I think the Explorer apps is, from the community perspective, is one of the most big hit, because many users who wants to use Grafana and learn how to create visualization, it just gives them an instance like this is, if you're running in container or local host, even like something Kubernetes, you get everything in instance, just use Prometheus. So that is definitely a very big hit, I must say.
Yeah, something else that may have gone behind the scenes, but when we look at users who are getting started with Grafana, whether it's an open source or Grafana Cloud, one of the biggest drop-offs, the things they struggle with, is connecting a data source. Last year, we put some specific energy into a handful of data sources to see if we could make configuration easier. And that resulted in a much better conversion rate. So a lot more people were successful connecting to their Prometheus, Loki, Tempo, or SQL data sources. And as a result, I mean, that's just that many more instances that get up and running, and that has compound effects when they share their dashboards, things like that.
Yeah, I remember some of these problems, because you sort of connect your database or something, and then you sort of see an error message, and you don't know, is it have I misconfigured Grafana, or is it sort of a problem with the database, and you just have to kind of go back and forth. And I think we've gotten better now at passing the errors through, right? And so to make it a bit more clear, like what's actionable the next step.
Exactly. One of my favorite things, Matt, earlier this year, you actually gave a talk on just being opinionated and obscuring a lot of the advanced details Like, okay, Grafana is great because it's super configurable, but one of the biggest changes that we made is just applying sensible defaults to as many settings on a data source as possible, taking a bunch of the advanced settings and putting those in an advanced section, and also simple bread and butter things like making sure the docs are up to date and have good step-by-step instructions. So yeah, it was just all of these effects together. A lot of the experiments were really successful. So for example, you'd have a data source where only 15% of people were successful, and we got to like 50% of people were successful with that data source. So now we're sort of, we're in a little bit of a island warfare. We got to do this with every data source now, but we have a good set of principles we're working against at least.
Yeah, I love this flow. I like it. Grafana started off as a pretty advanced tool. It was mainly like people hacking it together themselves to get it working and things in the very early days. And then over time, it just keeps improving, keeps getting better. And I love the photo. We talk a lot about that user experience internally and what that's like and how do we make that smoother. So it's really nice when we hear back that that's working, that sort of thinking is working. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like we're going from a hardware store to an IKEA. Slowly but surely, yeah.
Yeah. Carl, maybe you can help us with some of the naming of our products.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Some kitchen objects. Oh god, yeah. Talking about naming, we are also trying to rename the Explore apps now as well. Right? So that's been a considerable use of my time recently to come up with a better name, because we run into the issue now that the experience is so different from how it was before that when we talk about the new Explore apps, people are like, oh yeah, no, I've seen Explorer like back in the day. Is that the same? No, it's not. It's completely queryless experience, right? You just sort of kind of click through, filter, and it just rewrites the queries for you. And it's something that's been really difficult to also describe and put into a name. And yeah, we've had a good amount of sort of engineering time now on sort of a naming quest, and
it's hard.
It is hard. Yeah.
I came up with Explore 2 Judgment Day, just as an idea, but it hasn't had that many votes.
There's definitely a good amount of sort of funny and bad names that didn't make it. I quite like Bingo, because you just have like tiles and tiles of things, and you hit the one that you're interested in.
That's good. But you like a game where you have to do that.
Yeah. And I was Sparkle was also there. I thought it was quite positive. Yeah. But the big question is really, what does it look like in the navigation, right? Like if you see Sparkle or Bingo, like what do you expect behind this thing? Right?
I mean, we all know what the emojis would look like.
Yeah, exactly. But you also want it should also be very descriptive enough, not just in the menu, but also when you then explain, no, it's not the old Explore experience, is the new blank experience, right?
Yeah.
So it's been I had a thought in the shower this morning, like we should have also gone for something where the 4 parts kind of have like some concept that has maybe 4 ingredients, like the Beatles,
Oh,
yeah.
Were they ingredients to the band, the Beatles?
No, I was more thinking then, like, who would be Ringo in this, like, which database? Yeah.
No one wants to be Ringo, bless him.
Is that a direct translation from German? If you like a member of a band, you're an ingredient within the band.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
Good. But what about the bass and like some melody? Surely it's that like seasoning.
Yeah, or maybe. Yeah. No, but I also had to abandon this approach because like, what if we have a 5th app? Like, I mean, there's no 5th Beatle, right? Like that.
Yeah, Pete Best.
That doesn't work.
He's kind of fired.
Was he? Yeah. So final name still out. I think we have a few proposals, but still has to get through sort of wider approval process here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's an exercise. Like, you could come up with an idea, and then there's a big group of people, and they could be like, "No, I don't like it," and then that's it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just a process.
It's the ultimate bike shedding exercise. Right?
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't like that name.
Right.
Anyway. Variable naming at scale.
Yeah. Well, sweet. So, anything else 2024 that you were excited about, Mitch? Also that made it into the product?
Yeah, I mean so there were a lot of things, very visible things that came out. So it wasn't just the Explorer apps, but there were a ton of improvements to the Canvas panel. Like, it's a lot easier to sort of draw shapes, import into the Canvas panel, and you can even sort of take actions, like not just link from Canvas, but actually take actions out in another system. Like if you wanted to open a Jira ticket, or we had or start, stop, and restart a server. Like, you could actually interact with other APIs from within Canvas. It's pretty kind of sky's the limit. We had a bunch of new data sources, Adobe Analytics, Yugabyte, Zendesk, which are really interesting, I think, especially because they're not, strictly speaking, observability use cases, but building towards something like not just how is my service running, but how is my service doing? What's the health of it, all in, analytics wise, support tickets wise, and or even how is my team doing? So I think it's really exciting to see some of that stuff in Grafana. But maybe the sort of under the water part of the iceberg, like the big things that we're working on, which are kind of in the questions at the beginning of the call, are about Scenes and App Platform. So Scenes is a new front-end framework that includes components like all of Dashboard's panels, like the time range picker and other dashboard components. And over the course of the year, we have completely rewritten dashboards using Scenes. And the reason I say this is underwater is because what you can see of this right now is a slightly better reconfigured page. Like, for example, now you can stick template variables to the top of the page, like locking a spreadsheet row, which, I mean, this is one of the biggest feature requests in Grafana, but it's a small change. We see big performance improvements, but what we're about to see, and this is a little bit of foreshadowing, is just a lot more flexible use of dashboard layouts and conditional logic to render panels. So thinking things like rows that can have their own independent style of layout. New dashboard layouts like an auto grid that will auto arrange panels for you. You don't have to do it manually, or even tabs and drill downs and new ways to sort of interact with dashboards. So I'm really excited about Scenes and what the future holds, and it's already sort of reaping benefits. And then App Platform.
On the Explore apps, just on that, I think the reason that we're able to get the Explore apps out as quickly as we did was thanks to Scenes, really, because a lot of the sort of common problems that you have to solve for when you're building apps like this, Scenes kind of gives you a lot of that to go. So yeah, we definitely saw it accelerate things that we can build as well.
So have you like programmed in Scenes then, Matt?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, how's that?
Yeah, I mean, it gives you like you have to kind of think of it slightly differently. You have to sort of, it gives you a slightly different model other than React. So you have to figure that out. But once you do it, yeah, it depends on the kind of app you're building. But if it's very sort of, I mean, the Explore apps are all about drilling down into data and things. And, you know, you want things to cascade properly and all that. And so, yeah, you get that with Scenes. So, yeah, I think sometimes you sort of rub up against it. It's like any kind of framework. If it's doing the thing you want it to do, it's kind of perfect. And then if you want to do something slightly different, that's usually where there's some friction. But generally, yeah, I like how quickly we're able to get these apps out thanks to it, you know.
Yeah, so yeah, Scenes used to rewrite dashboards, and then also, yeah, exactly, as a library, or let's sort of call it a JavaScript framework, it can be used to actually write apps, which we're doing with a whole bunch of apps in cloud. The second thing, which is happening more on the back end, where Scenes is on the front end, is the app platform, where essentially we're rewriting all of the APIs in Grafana, and also offering apps the ability to write backends using a consistent framework. Use a bunch of Kubernetes concepts like the API format, and that allows for, this is like a basis that's going to drive a ton of improvements in things like consistency in our APIs, right? So as we build new apps and migrate our existing features onto App Platform, the APIs are going to look and feel very consistent with each other. That also allows us to do all kinds of exciting things like have consistent Terraform resources and consistent ways to interact with those objects as code in a bunch of formats, some of which are probably going to be coming out in Grafana 12. But yeah, this is another just very foundational thing. It's a sort of a rising tide that lifts all boats.
And that does bring us to another community question we had about dashboards as code in particular. Is there something for the community to do there? Where are we with these sort of as code? What's our thinking?
Well, I can answer, but I wonder, Carl, if you want to pitch in.
I can say a few words. So as code is one of our primary goals for Grafana 12. There's going to be a lot of efforts here. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's definitely going to be talks about this at GrafanaCON. We're going to do workshops about this at GrafanaCON, both for existing tooling and also very exciting new tooling and features that we're adding. So this is as code is Grafana 12 for sure. Like it's the year of as code for us.
Exciting.
Yep.
And the consistency APIs are really, really important because the API of Grafana was kind of homegrown. It just grew and existed to help the front end do as little work as possible. The new API is standardized around the same API format that Kubernetes has, which means it's going to be easier to move objects around between servers and just do CRUD operations in a consistent way. So once you learn the format, you're going to be able to interact with any resource.
Yeah, it is exciting. I mean, it's exciting building in that way as well because of a lot of the stuff you're going to get for free.
Yeah,
I love in App Platform, you put a resource in and you can kind of watch that resource and you can even watch it from the front end. So, building anything that has to sort of stay in sync or have real-time elements to it, all that stuff becomes much easier to do as a developer. And then I think the knock-on effect of that means the apps will just get better and better and richer and more useful and feel more rapid and all that great stuff.
Yeah, I think this dashboard as code will be definitely a big surprise and big winner in my opinion, because this is something from the last year when I talked with the community or just been in talks. This question always arrived, and yes, we are working, and as Carl said that something will be very nicely and very big announced in the GrafanaCON. So stay tuned for the GrafanaCON as well.
Yeah, exciting. I mean, it gets very, if you've used any of the AI assistants to help with writing code and things, having as code as an option for Grafana means you can also use the AI to essentially help with all your observability stuff as well. So that really is going to unlock a lot, I think. And also it's given me some ideas for different hackathon projects.
Yeah, I was curious. I think we also had to change quite a bit under the hood, right? We had to introduce proper schemas, right, for dashboards. What were the difficulties there, Carl?
That's a good question. I don't have a lot of in-depth knowledge, but we have evaluated a fair amount of different frameworks for doing schemas. I think we're still relying on Q for that. But one of the biggest obstacle for this is that the dashboard JSON has not had a real schema for 10 years. So most of the code for keeping dashboards up to date, because you can still build a dashboard in Grafana 2 and import it into 10. All of that, like logic for enabling that, has been in the front end only. And that's a little bit limiting if we want to do things like linting and validation. So taking all of that old knowledge and turning that into a schema is a big challenge we're working on. But Dashboard V2 is going to be where we take like definitive stance into schematizing everything and making everything properly usable from as code and like a CLI and so on.
So that's interesting that it never had a schema this far. And what kind of challenges did that create? Was it like, because if you're writing code to generate the dashboard JSON to create dashboards, did that change? Did that suddenly break between major versions and things?
Nothing breaking, because we have a lot of transformation in the front end. So whenever you load a dashboard JSON, it runs through this number of transformations depending on the revision number in your dashboard JSON.
Wow.
So that's how you can run so all dashboards. But this creates a big problem, because you cannot say validate all my current dashboards, like, are my dashboards okay? These questions are very hard to answer. So you always get into this position where you might have a lot of dashboards. That is key problem here, right? You might have a lot of dashboards in your database that you are not sure is going to work in the next version. Even if we try and make a lot of big efforts around it, it's not guaranteed in the same way as if we had schemas. There's also a big problem in Grafana where we have so many plugins, right? So a data source plugin or a panel plugin or an app plugin, how they deal with the data structures and new versions of Grafana might not be as perfect or good in any way either. So this is also something we need to schematize. And this is a big effort, but we're starting and we're making sure that dashboard is getting there. And it's going to be a thing from going forward for sure.
Yeah, it's exciting. Especially with the versioning and all that will be managed, and any automatically generated clients and stuff. I get very excited still about things like that.
Yeah, there's there are so many layers to this problem. You say, okay, layer one. Well, it's hard for me to define a dashboard in code format or generate it, from a library, and it's hard for me to keep up with, say, changes in the API, or the API for dashboards and the API for annotations feel different, inconsistent with each other. So we get these problems on the surface, but to fix them, we have to go all the way to the source, which is, well, what is the definition of a dashboard? What is a report? And are those definitions consistent with each other? And then the APIs, are those APIs consistent with each other? And then the clients, are the ways that you would interact with those APIs, like our Terraform provider or a CLI, or even our docs themselves, are those all consistent with each other? And if we start from sort of the base layer, which we have been doing, then a lot of the other stuff can sort of flow up, and you get a cleaner, more consistent set of interfaces that stay up to date over time.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of fortuitous that we're also doing this while we're changing the overall architecture, right? I feel like this is kind of when you're redoing the kitchen and you've got all the stuff out, you might as well sort of change the wallpaper, because you just it's there's the chance you have once in 10 years. You mentioned Terraform already, APIs, right? I feel like we've implemented kind of the exporting and importing out of dashboards sort of in 3 different things already, right? And I think that probably contributed to the messiness and to that it's not clear which road to take, and they all have some certain advantages. And so that's been a big part, I think, also for the upcoming work still before GrafanaCON, to really figure out, can we get this to one solid story that it's sort of very obvious to do, or it's obvious what to do and which tool to use. Yeah,
I think we're quite lucky, because the Grafana project lived long enough that we need to do these big foundational changes to the project. Early on, we went really fast and we tried to get adoption and get a feature out there, right? But both scenes and app platforms are these larger initiatives that needs to happen for it to prosper for the next 10 years. And I'm very keen on both of them and the direction both of them are taking. Scenes is basically completed at this point, but that platform is going to be remain a project, a quite large project for a long time.
So we have as code, right, as a big thing that's coming up for the upcoming year. Anything else we want to do, Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, how much time do we have? I think the other thing that I get really excited about, which is just whatever else is happening in Grafana, we are improving the way that you get data, like the data sources, what they can do, and how easy it is to query them. We're always improving the panels and visualizations, and we're always improving dashboards and the sort of the flexibility functionality of dashboards. So in that realm, there's a ton of things to talk about, but I think the most the exciting one for me to think about is dynamic dashboards. And dynamic dashboards means dashboards that respond a little bit better to what the viewer is doing with them, or which allow for a little bit more conditionality. So this is kind of an abstract way of describing it. But today, right, you create a dashboard. You can create template variables. When you select a template variable, that can affect the data that's displayed in a query, but it can't affect things like which panels show up. Or which rows are prioritized. It can affect things like, well, you know, what time range is selected in the time range picker. And if you select one template variable and you want it to be reflected, the values of that template variable to be reflected differently by different data sources or different panels, things like that are impossible. And while these feel like edge cases, there are 1,000 of those edge cases, and many people who are trying to create a dashboard of any level of complexity run into at least one of those. So this is what I meant when I say, okay, the promise of scenes is dynamic dashboards, which for me basically means being able to do more with fewer dashboards. Like my dream, the thing that I think is what's going to be really exciting and we can make real this year is where previously I would have to create 7 separate dashboards for my Redis cluster or my Java Spring Boot app, like one for each facet, or one that, you know, in a high level view and another at another level, at a lower level of detail. I could accomplish that with just one. Right. So, for example, I have a high-level list view that shows me my Kubernetes cluster with a list of pods. I click on a pod and I go into a tab or sort of a sub-view of that same dashboard, which shows me the information related to that pod with just the panels floated to the top that have the highest level of priority. And so, really being able to create a more dynamic, interactive view of dashboards, just more powerfully, but with the same level of flexibility.
So basically, that means that these dashboard will be depends on the user behavior, like what they want to view, rather than the dashboard decide itself that this is high priority for me, so I should show these results. Is it correct?
Exactly. Like generally speaking, right now in Grafana, a dashboard is a dashboard, and the view you look at is the view that was created by the editor. But there are just so many different conditions that could cause a user to want to see something a little bit different, including things like that user's specific permissions. And so, we're interested in exploring things like data source permissions that are more granular than just a single set of credentials, so that users are seeing what they should be able to see, as opposed to some sort of generic view. There's like a lot of permutations, but throughout the year, I think what you should expect to see is dashboard options and tools that allow you to sort of tailor the dashboard view to what that user needs in that moment, and therefore you're going to be able to do a lot more monitoring, give people an overview of their systems with fewer dashboards.
Exciting.
I'm very bullish on this, because in reality, whenever you're making changes to your system, let's say you have 10 different clusters and you want to start running Redis in one of them, then you're going to have this weird position, like what do I have in my dashboard? Do I have memory cache or Redis? Like now you would be able to have 2 when you have more conditional rendering, and let the data or dashboards render either, depending on what you're looking at. And those kind of more dynamic behaviors are going to be very, very useful in Grafana, because the systems are always changing. And when you have both, that leads to this like mess within the dashboards.
Yeah, this gets you to like a much more mature practice, right? Where you like the more sort of reusability you have, also the more sort of quality you usually get. And there's a fair amount of features that are going in that direction for us now.
Totally. Yeah, and then in the realm of data sources, we were talking about configuring a data source, which is hard, and a lot of people sort of struggle at that step. But that's a thing that you do once, right? And so like with data sources internally, we talk about, can I find the data source I'm looking for? Can I find that, that I can connect my data? And then can I configure it? And then can I query it? Sort of get to the point where I'm getting value out of using that data. So in that third box, can I query it? I'm pretty excited about additional things we're working on as well. So for example, some data sources, like if I'm querying MySQL, there are as many SQL queries and table types as there are sort of people using Grafana. But for a data source like GitHub, well, there are a pretty concrete and finite set of things that people can query in GitHub, and a pretty predictable set of use cases. So I'm interested in exploring and experimenting with, well, hey, how can we make it easier for people to do those common things in GitHub? Just like we did with the sort of Prometheus, Loki, and Tempo with the Explore apps, but in a really flexible, big tent way. One of the things that I think could be great there is also making better use of community dashboards, right? Working those a little bit more closely into the app, so that when you set up a data source that has a pretty consistent data model, we can give you the benefit of the community's expertise and contributions there to pick out a dashboard or other information that people have already created.
Yeah, okay. There's this question came in from the community, from Undefined Human. They're asking about tenancy here in out-of-the-box features like app front-end observability infrastructure and things. But generally, like tenancy, how do we think about that? And is there, is App Platform going to help there as well?
By tenancy, I wonder, do we mean multi-tenancy, or like running these as separate processes from Grafana?
It's a good question. Undefined Human. I mean, I can't ask them, can I? I don't know who they are. Tell us a bit about that, though. I don't know what they mean, really.
I mean, I think it's in the second part, right? Like making the data sources selectable. So could you have a Grafana instance where you have essentially tenants by data source? So you have 5 tenants, means you have 5 Prometheus data sources, so that in your app Ollie you can select which Prometheus should be the underlying thing. And I think that's not possible, right? Because it's one stack, right? Is that true, Mitch? Do you remember?
It is. So I think our intention, basically with building out app observability, front-end observability asserts, is that those are easy to use and they work consistently when you're using the Grafana Cloud stack. So it may be possible to, in the future, including this year, to choose from multiple stacks in cloud. Say when I'm using Kubernetes monitoring, or maybe even better for us to combine the data from those stacks, so you don't really have to worry about a concept like data sources if you're just trying to monitor your Kubernetes clusters. The thing that we're unlikely to do, because we're sort of building specifically on the cloud stack and some of the unique features that are offered in the databases there, we're not planning to, say, make app observability work with any Prometheus data source or any Loki data source. Some of the limitations of self-managed Prometheus or Loki data sources are make that infeasible. And for us to have this really opinionated, specific view on the state of your clusters or the state of your app, we need the whole stack to be working together. But yeah, viewing multiple stacks is potentially in the cards.
Yeah, okay. So just a quick reminder, we will answer your questions if you come and ask them. We'll ask them, we'll put them to the panel live. We're happy to do that. Another one came in that's related to what you're talking about, Mitch. Currently, Explore Metrics only works with the Prometheus data source. Is it planned that we extend this to other data sources? And why is it only available for the Prometheus data source?
Sure. Yeah, I could just as easily ask you that question, Matt, since you're working on it. Yeah, my answer is we're planning. Yeah. We're planning for this to specifically and only support the Prometheus data source. Why? It's basically because Explore Metrics is possible, meaning like a totally clickable sort of exploratory experience is possible because we're doing Prometheus specific stuff. If we tried to generalize Explore Metrics to work with any metrics data source, we would have to make it more generic, making it more generic makes it a little bit trickier to use, and brings us kind of back full circle to something like Explore Classic, where you're just executing a query against a data source. We've tried in the past to make really flexible, clickable experiences there, and I think we've done pretty well, from the perspective of querying just any data out in the world. But Explore Metrics is designed specifically to work with Prometheus, and specifically so that somebody can use it to best effect.
Yeah, and it's never say never on this, because you never know where we're going to go with it. But the same is true for logs as well. Explore Logs is built on top of Loki, and there are some like Loki specific. There's like some dedicated APIs in Loki to power the Explore Logs experience. And obviously we can't easily go and do that with another log provider.
I think this is
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's almost more accurate to think of Explore Metrics as a front end for Prometheus, as opposed to a Grafana feature that queries metrics.
So I think this is an important step where we're not locked down to the old data source query format, but we go beyond that to solve a certain use case and take a step forward as a product or project, because otherwise you're going to be limited to that contract forever. But when you expand beyond this contract, you cannot do that for every data source initially. So this is a consideration, like long term. Do we want to figure out the real contracts here or standardize on them, or do we want to keep experimenting with these specific data sources, because we might not be at the stage yet where we want to say this is the contract, anyone can implement those contracts, because it's still young, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also just a nice roundup that we have essentially clickable front ends for all our sort of open source sort of various telemetry data sources, right? Because this is all sort of Prometheus, Mimir, Loki, Tempo, and Pyroscope, right? Like these are the front ends that you can now use like for free, right? To just already get a pretty good experience. And for us, it's still adoption is still a big part of like what the company wants to achieve.
Yeah, and I think also if we did that thing where we support all these different data sources, we could still have very conditional bits in the front end that only show up in certain conditions and things. But we're very sensitive about not wanting to deliver degraded experiences depending on what you've got going on. So because we want that to be top quality, nice experience that's just the best it can be, and it's harder to do that if you have to, it's certainly harder to test, right? You have to test all these permutations all of a sudden. So it's kind of loads of challenges technically as well. But yeah, it's interesting. I think this is why I always recommend to people to get in touch and tell us what you're doing, tell us what you think and what you need. Because it really makes a difference with how we make decisions.
Yeah, I think Matt, you raise a very good point about the quality which we want to deliver, and I think we are currently okay. We have Prometheus for Explore Metrics, but if someone may be using some other open source or other data sources, they can still go to the classic Explore and they can still get all the data. We also have very much polish and improve a lot of new features and did a lot of bug fixes also in the documentation side as well for the Explore. So everyone should try that out as well.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other questions from the community, Usman?
I don't have this at the moment, but maybe I can also talk a little bit about Grafana Champions program. If
Sure, yeah.
So I would really like to start with this. That we started this program some time ago. I was also like one of the initials who were working on like making this a project. And I'm very happy to say that now this program is very widely spread. We have around the year, we have now more than 100 users in the channel. This is great because now with them, we are working actually almost on many different things. Like we are trying to solve a lot of our community related issues, also working on GitHub, or just something related to documentation. Some of those folks also actually volunteer to become like maintainer, like such as I know one individual who is now a maintainer of our Grafana Helm chart, which is amazing because this is something from a little background that it was a little hard to find someone who can do this or agree to do this. And now we have some champions who are doing this. So this is great. And I will really recommend any of open source community users either using Grafana or no even Prometheus or any other tool related to visualization. Join our Grafana Champions program. It has really a lot of perks and goodies for you. And we will be happy to get you on board. So yeah, that's all I have, at least for now. And yeah,
No,
one small thing
great.
related to also this program. Although we project what are the perks, but one main perk which I actually love is that we have a dedicated Grafana Champions channel where we work actually with them. And this is amazing because as a champion, you can actually talk to our engineers, ask them directly some questions, and also get some sneak peek to what's coming new in the future. So you can maybe work with us, test it out, and see, okay, this is good. This is something I'm really interested, or make some improvement to make it even better. So yeah.
Good pitch. Did they get any swag?
Oh yeah, definitely. Swag is the most important part. We really care about the swag, and you definitely get also. We have also gamified. So depends. Like there's a minimal limit, but if you are going or you're super interested to go aboard, you get some nice swags, and everyone loves swags. I also love swags. Also, I'm not a champion, but I wish I could be at the same time. Not a lot.
Can you not be a champion if you work for Grafana Labs? Then you have to resign first.
Yeah, you have to do the first part. You have to quit and then become a champion.
Okay, well there you go. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, speaking of things to look forward to, Carl, you wanted to talk a little about upcoming events too, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to share my screen. Can we put that one in the StreamYard somehow? Yeah, so GrafanaCON 2025, May 6 to 8 of May in Seattle. The CFP is still open. So you still have about a week to send your submission. And it's going to be in McKay Hall in Seattle. So look at this place. Like it looks really nice.
Oh, wow.
Imagine being there on stage or in the audience, consuming so much new Grafana content and meeting the full community. So very excited about this. And yeah, please apply if you have something you want to share about GrafanaCON, about Grafana, our community, or any of our open source projects, not just Grafana itself, but Mimir, Loki, Pyroscope, Tempo. It's all open. Yeah. This old image is from GrafanaCON 18 in Amsterdam. Not sure you want to watch that one. Let's go back to this one.
I like the second one. That room looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
So it looks like an AI generator. Is that a real photograph?
It's absolutely real. We spent a lot of time trying to find a venue that felt should have a strong community vibe and like give in certain vibe to these presentations. We didn't want to just office space in some big building somewhere downtown. So it took us a fair amount of time to find this place in Seattle.
It looks incredible.
Yeah, I think like any venue where you need like the fisheye effect to just capture it all already sort of makes it's small enough to feel cozy.
Good venue. It looks like, I mean, I think we could do some stand up there. Look, as well in front of that curtain. Mitch,
I'm pretty sure we can.
Yeah, I mean, you're hosting, right, Matt? Or...
I'll be hosting it. Yeah, so I essentially will be doing stand up.
Yeah.
And last year we sold out, by the way, quite quickly. So if you want to get your ticket, make sure to get it quickly.
Good tip.
Someone also asking, is there swag at GrafanaCON?
Pretty sure we haven't nailed the details around it yet, but there's always swag at GrafanaCON.
Yeah.
Yep. There's another question here from Juan Carlos. Where can I get info on an Alloy complete exercise to collect Lambda metrics with AWS Powertools and visualize it in a dynamic SRE Grafana dashboard? So I wonder where you would get stuck there the most.
I think Jay may have posted a response there right on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, the response here. We do have a AWS cloud integration that will give you these metrics out of the box, and we're also going to have an Alloy tutorial. Does that
We might have an Alloy and telemetry workshop at GrafanaCON as well. So check your newsletters.
Yeah. No, I think, that exists. Also, if our own exporters are not doing it and the tutorials aren't doing it for you, there's also an Alloy community call, right? Where you can sort of figure out essentially the collection of the metrics. Because I think with kind of coming from the Grafana side, it should be easy, right? And I feel like this might be more an Alloy problem, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and also I just wanted to highlight one important thing here, since this question come like how to use Alloy with different things. Maybe there are many users who still might be struggling. So we have this link. I'm just posting this link to in our chat. Just give me a moment.
And what is it a link to?
Yeah, it links to actually Killercoda. So my spell mistake, it's Killercoda. So basically, if you go there and you just click on this link, you will land to the Grafana Labs Killercoda exercises. And we do have like a demo-based exercise how to get started with Alloy and done certain metrics. All the lab environment is predefined, so only you have to follow the instruction to understand like how it works in general. Yeah, so this can really help anyone who wants to ramp up their skills of using Alloy.
Killer side, is that like if you were to murder a murderer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what that is. I mean, that's a startup name, free.
So if you're thinking of doing a startup where you go around killing murderers, the name is in the bag.
Yeah.
Killercoda. Yeah.
Oh, you know what we didn't do, Matt? We didn't do your quiz.
No, we didn't do the quiz. We'll do a quiz next time.
We'll do a quiz next time.
Yeah, we'll open with a question, and then you can have a guess through the episode, and then we'll reveal the answer at the end of the episode, starting next time.
So a bit like Dora the Explorer. You like have to pay attention.
Yeah, very much. That's where a lot of our ideas comes from. Dora. That's where the Explore apps came from originally.
Probably where the background of this call came from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's either going to be this or Bluey.
I love Bluey.
No.
Everyone loves Bluey.
I don't know. It just makes me feel inadequate.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I think that's it for today then, right? So thanks a lot, Mitch, for joining this group, and thanks, Usman, for representing the community also. Thank you to all the hosts, and I think that's another campfire in the box.
Another campfire
Sweet.
in the box. That's the saying.
In the box or in the books?
In the books.
In the
books. Yeah. It's a fire hazard, really, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So, we've got a Grafana incident tool that we can use if that happens.
All right. See you all next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Catch you later.